finishing the book and not ready to get the spoilers just yet. Yep.
Yes. Yes. Your book has just made such a splash, and it's been so fun to see it out in the world. So congratulations.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Thanks
And
for having me too. I'm really excited to be here.
yes, and my co-host
Oh,
Ivana is right there. Her daughter's
hi,
birthday
Holly.
was tonight, so she just hopped on too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yay.
Yes. Well, it's been just so fun to be an early reader of this book and to be so excited about it and then see what's happened since it's been published. It was a Book of the Month Club pick, and then you've got some film adaptations, and like what a whirlwind happening for you.
Yeah, it's been it's been crazy. I have to say it's been less of a whirlwind than maybe it seems because like I knew about a lot of that stuff for a long time. I've just
Yes.
been like sitting with the film news,
Yeah.
tortured by it for like a year.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. I want to come back to that too, because that's amazing that they had film stuff happening before the book even was out. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, just how exciting to finally have your idea and your words and your heart just be out for people to be reading it.
It is. It is my heart too. It is like my whole heart and soul on
Oh, right.
268 pages.
Yeah, you can tell your love
Yeah.
for music and storytelling and just like crafting an amazing metaphor as we were talking about in book club. Rebecca, one of our readers, had started off with the taffy metaphor and then like noticed every metaphor and was like highlighting everything, every metaphor throughout the book and just thought it was brilliant. So your writing is just it's wonderful. So thank you for sharing your gifts with us.
Thank you. And thank you, Rebecca, for noticing. I do work very hard on those, trying not to make them cliche and trying to make them really feel true, you know?
Definitely, definitely. What has it been like for the book to be out and for you to be on tour, and how has that gone for you?
It's been really fun. My tour was a little long. I felt, I have kids and
Yeah.
it started near the end. I was like, oh, okay, I can still miss my kids. They're like at that age where they're like 11 and 9. So,
Okay.
you don't have the I don't have that like
Mhm.
I was really looking forward to getting away is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say.
Yes.
But by the end of it, I was really homesick. And yeah, it's just been a lot of attention and a lot of my life kind of changing overnight. So it's been a lot.
Yeah.
But just the readers, people liking the book, all of that has just been just such a dream come true, really, really. And I think because I'm 45, it's it's just it's just overwhelming to feel this much change in your life, like this late in your life. Not that it's late, but it's like I was settled.
Mhm.
And it's not like if I feel like if it had happened when I was 25, I would have been like, yeah, I'm great. I'm a great writer. I'm deserving all of this. But this has been sort of just like uh I had settled into my life as a mom and a working mom, and now it's just everything got so much better for me. And it's just like I just didn't see it coming. So
Yeah.
there's a certain amount of just shock, honestly. Shock.
Yeah. Well, we love to support debut authors and cheer you on. So it's so exciting that this has happened for you. And I do feel like we've had a number of authors on. I'm thinking of Emma Gray for the Last Love Note, and I'm thinking of Go as Shelley Reed, Go as a River. These women in their 40s and even 50s. Well, I think Shelley might have been 60 even. That have had their debut novels come out, and it's just
Ah.
so cool to see.
Yeah, there was Bonnie Garmis a couple years
Yeah.
ago. Like, yeah, it is, I think it's really cool. And I think it's fun to write about, in this case, youth, with a little perspective, a
That's
little wisdom.
yes. Yes. Do you feel I guess I'll say it this way. What has it been like from like making that jump? Like, will you talk a little bit about your path to publication and
Sure.
what that journey was for you?
Yeah, so I mean, I wrote the book very quickly in like a year. It was like the whole of 2022. And that was after many years of just barely writing, chipping away at stuff in fits and starts. Um, I got my MFA at Columbia in fiction, not nonfiction like Percy, 20 years ago. So there was a lot of like just parenting and working. And then it's just, I think the pandemic kind of like jostled some things loose for me where I was like, oh, I finally had enough time to think and realize this is not, I have to, when am I going to write this novel? It's got to happen. And so we left San Francisco. We moved to Portland, Oregon, which is just a tiny bit cheaper, and that allowed me to take a job that wasn't so demanding because the career I had in San Francisco was just like I was just on a treadmill. And then once I had that job, I had a little bit more freedom in my schedule to write. And anyway, so I focused really hard. I loved writing this book. I spent all of my time writing it. I was like writing it, standing up at the kitchen counter, waiting for the pasta water to boil. I was writing it at play spaces and trampoline parks. And then I spent most of 2023 finding the agent. That part was not fun. But then once I had the agent, it all happened really, really fast. And so she sent it out for submission in 2023. And then, um, yeah, that it was just sold really quickly at auction. And then, it takes a long time for the actual book to come out, which is just how it works. So yeah, it's just was mostly waiting for me at that point. Like I'm halfway through my next book because yeah, that just took so much time of just kind of getting an email where I would like approve some edits or see a cover design and then otherwise just kind of wait. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's me.
Did your previous job have anything to do with writing, editing, typewriting?
No, so it was, well, I guess so. It was that, so the job Percy has in the last third of the book.
Mhm.
I had that job when I was in my 20s, exact
Okay.
job. And then I'm transitioned into that kind of laddered up into a market research job and then into brand strategy, which was, I would write concepts and sometimes do copywriting on a package redesign or something. But mostly no. I mean, certainly not the kind of writing I wanted to
Right.
do. Yeah.
Shocking. It just seems like it seems like you've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah. Thank you.
No.
Rebecca.
Rebecca had a yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ivana.
Oh, Rebecca had a question that was great. I don't know if you want to ask Rebecca or we can ask about the auction
Oh,
process.
sorry, I was on mute. I've never heard about auctioning for, is it movie rights? How did that process work?
Or
Um,
just the book, right?
for
Or
the
was it the
book,
book?
well, there was an
Oh, I'm
auction
sorry.
for both.
For
There
both.
was an auction for both. So it went out to Hollywood at the same time as it went out to publishers.
Oh,
But
wow.
just to tell you about, and then there was an auction for both. So it's just when more than one person wants it, and so they one publisher put out a number and the other publisher put out another number, and yeah, it was just a dream. And then I got to kind of pick my favorite, who, and it's sort of like I talked to all the publishers on Zoom, and then there was like the amount that they were offering, and then there was also our conversation and their editorial vision. And I was really happy with Amy Einhorn at Crown.
It's
Um,
kind of like a hairdresser. I mean, you've got to have that relationship, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, totally.
Good simile, Rebecca.
Yeah, you have to like the haircuts they've done in the past too.
So how did it come about that the movie rights were sold at the same time that the book rights? Like how did that, I feel like that's quite rare for
We
especially a
haven't heard
debut
of that.
author.
Right.
How does, yeah.
Well, I think it isn't. It's just that nothing ever comes of it.
Mm.
Like people sell, I mean, so Bonnie Garmus was an example when it definitely happened. I mean, that um Amazon Prime show for Lessons in Chemistry was airing like months after the book came out. So that must have been happening simultaneously. But I think what usually happens is this is all very new to me too. Like the fact that I'm speaking with any degree of authority on it is kind of hilarious because I was just asking these questions. Um, but what usually happens is, they option it and they option it for 12 to 18 months. Um, and then they have that time when they sort of own the rights to develop it. And then it gets stuck in development hell and nothing but comes of it.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that 18 months, they have the option to either let it go or to renew. So then maybe they'll renew. Most of my friends who are writers have just kind of had their books optioned and nothing ever comes of it, but it's a nice little extra income
Yeah.
source. And my agent was very cynical from the beginning. She was like, don't expect any more than that, with this. But because Saoirse read it very early and attached very early, Saoirse Ronan. And then once that just kind of changed everything, I think.
Okay.
Um, and because it was A24, I think they're a little bit more intentional with their optioning. And I don't know. I got really lucky. It just things happen, things kept happening, and it seems like it's really going to happen. So I think that's the biggest difference is just that like everything kind of lined up. And it's just luck. It's just really a lot of
Well,
luck.
it's probably more than that, but
Mhm. Yeah.
I know
A really good
everyone
point.
wants to
That's
discredit that, and I get it, because I wrote a good book,
yeah.
and it's gonna
yeah.
make a good movie, and I get it. And women should be proud of their accomplishments and all of that. But I also think two things can be true. I also got lucky.
Okay, we'll give you that. We'll give you that. Will you talk to us a little bit about your inspiration for the story?
Sure. So I have always been very envious of musicians. I grew up in a really musical family. Everyone else in my family kind of had this thing that I didn't. But I loved music, obviously. And just really wished that I had that talent instead of the one that I had, which was just like boring words on paper, like and very solitary. And so I kind of have carried this with me my whole life. It never went away. I've always dated musicians. I married a musician. I just wanted to kind of unpack that corner of my brain because the older I got, the more I was starting to realize how silly it was, and starting to see it more and more through a feminist lens because and just starting to ask questions of like, well, why was I so sure from such a young age that I didn't have this talent? What to the degree where I just counted myself out completely. I could have no role in the entire music industry because I wasn't extremely good at it without trying. And I think that's one of the most damaging ways that we internalize misogyny is by just thinking that we have to be really good at things. We have to be better than boys think they have to be, which I think is just one of the many reasons there are more men in that industry because it's something you have to be bad at for a while. And I think it's also why there are more men in all sorts of positions of power. So along with lots of other reasons. So yeah, I was just kind of wanting to explore that. That was the initial kernel. I've also always wanted to just write a music novel, a rock novel. I read High Fidelity like 10 times in high school, and I just wanted to participate in that tradition. And I wanted to make it a love story, because I thought that envy could be a really good complicating factor, in a love story. Every love story needs that. And, you can't want to be the person that you're with. There's a horrible kind of self-erasure in that. And I knew that would be kind of meaty. So that's what I started with. I didn't really know where it was going to go. I had no outline. I had no plan. I started in the aughts because that's when I was young and I knew I wanted to write about young people. And then I just kind of just had fun, just let the snowball roll and was just kind of chasing it.
What was your research process like and choosing the songs throughout the book?
Research would have been a good idea, probably, but I did not really do any research,
Well,
honestly. Unless you count, yeah, like sifting through my brain research or shouting next at my Alexa over and over again, research. There was some of that. Mostly, I kind of headed into each chapter knowing which song I wanted to write about or having some sense that, like, okay, this is going to be my Everybody Needs Somebody to Love. I used to love dancing to that song at Soul Night, and that'll be the perfect one for her and Zoe's relationship. I would kind of just have it. These are all songs I love, all
mm,
songs I had something to say about. But sometimes it would change. And then there were a few times I had to hunt the song down. The Joan Armatrading song was like that, where I knew I sort of had a placeholder in there for a long time, where I knew Percy was going to kind of have this breakdown after seeing Joe at the Troubadour. And then there would be some song that would help her make this pivot to, to calling Luke Skinner. It's fun to talk about it with people who've actually read it.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but I didn't know what that song would be. And I kind of knew the emotional weight it had to pull was quite heavy. So I was just, yeah, that was a barking at Alexa moment. It was rifling through our record collection and just Googling lyrics. So I guess that was a sort of research. I always say I didn't do any research, but there was some
Yeah.
talking to my husband. And then once I found that song, The Weakness in Me, not only was it perfect, but it actually made the pivot deeper, I think, emotionally and brought something totally new to it. So the songs were really, they were kind of like a writing partner that was always pushing me and helping me.
Yeah, that sounds like fun research. It sounds like you just picked like the perfect topic for you to write about. They say write what you know, and you did that and it worked out beautifully.
And so funny
Totally.
because
And I
anytime,
had, sorry,
no,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Anytime we meet with an author, I'm an English teacher for middle school, and I'm always like, okay, this is a great writing exercise to pick a song and write a story based on a song because every chapter that you have here is so the song is so tied to what happens in the story that it's like the perfect collision of, the music plus the plot. It's just so fascinating that you're able to make every song kind of work
Yeah.
into the plot. It's fascinating. It's
Yeah,
just,
thank you. That's
huh.
just kind of how first of all, I think that's a great
I
exercise.
think
I
I'm
would have
gonna,
loved if my teacher did had that assignment in high
yeah,
school.
that's,
But yeah, that's kind of how I've always heard music, I love analyzing music and unpacking music, but not in any technical way. I just like to think about how it makes me feel and the enormous power of it and how it um can actually kind of shape your emotions and I think sometimes even influence your behavior in the moment of action in a way that very few other art forms can. And so that's always been my filter on music. And I did kind of by the time I was like getting into my 40s, I was realizing it was unique and that maybe it could be a book, to just do that. And the story kind of formed around that. Yeah.
it worked. It really worked. And music is so interesting too. I always tell my husband when you hear a song, because I'm 44 also, I'm immediately back in that moment within the first few chords of a song. I feel like it's like time travel. how it
Yeah.
can place you there, but I don't remember like, what appointment I have today.
Yeah.
But those, it's just like it's such like a, yeah, interesting topic that you brought into a whole
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. Thank you.
Dana, do you have a question?
Well, yeah, I kind of had one that went along with this. I love this line on the second page where you talk about, I would call this a perfect track, a perfect recording, not a perfect song. And the conversations throughout the book about whether it's a perfect song or a perfect track, are these like the songs that you talked about being the perfect song? Are those some of your favorite perfect songs? And are these conversations that you had with people about tracks and songs?
Yeah, especially when I was younger. Yeah, definitely. I remember that perfect track, perfect song thing coming up with my dad when I was in high school, I think, because there was the Grammy category of record of the year, and then there was song of the year. And I remember my dad explaining to me that the song of the year is about like the bones of the song, whereas record of the year is like how it was all recorded. Um, so yeah, I've been having these types of conversations my whole life, but definitely more in college than in my 20s, when you're just like your opinion is everything. Now I would probably be a little bit more likely to just be like, oh, you like that song? Cool. I don't, but that's totally cool. You just, as you get older, it's just these things matter less. And I think I was really nostalgic for that too. Just that feeling of your opinion meaning so much. After you get older and you're a mom, nobody cares about your opinion anymore. So there was just something really fun for me about revisiting that time of my life, and especially in the context of somebody whose opinion actually is quite valuable in this industry. It's sort of her superpower. Um, so yeah, lots of those conversations. Okay, I think I saw Is Joe based on someone real? So much of Percy seems to be so. So Percy, I think, came from my rib for sure. Um, but she's definitely not me. She's an exaggerated version of some of my hangups. My envy of musicians, my sort of critical perfectionist nature, basically the things I hate most about myself, I gave to poor Percy.
It's
Um,
vulnerable. That's a vulnerable move.
yeah, I know. But then I sort of fell in love with her, and like a lot of other people have fallen in love with her, like Saoirse fucking Ronan has fallen in love with her. So it feels a little like there's something very therapeutic about that, honestly. Like it's Percy made me like myself more. It's
Oh.
a really cheesy thing to say. I'm gonna throw up in my mouth, but um yeah, Joe, no. Honestly, nobody else is real. I totally made them up. Joe certainly has elements of boys I've dated, and a little bit of my husband, not much. And even girlfriends, I have this one friend who lost her parents young, and there's some elements of that I put into Joe. So I don't know. It's like a soup up there of just all my experiences and people I've known, and I'm just drawing on all of it. But no, Joe is the one that has the most connection to anybody real is certainly Percy.
Mhm. It's their relationship and their angst and their dynamic was so rich and so interesting to follow. And I like how you really played with what is like supporting a friend and where does it cross the line between like intellectual property theft versus like support. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think it's a really complicated subject, right? It's not clear. And anytime you're in that kind of a gray area, it just makes for really good storytelling, I think. So I didn't know I was headed there, but it happened very quickly. It very quickly became clear that would be a sticking point. Um, and that, I think it does happen a lot of time that women get taken advantage of in this way. I mean, there are cases throughout history in basically every discipline since the beginning of time of this happening. So I was playing with that, but I also didn't want it to be super black and white, where it's just this like dude is being a jerk and taking advantage of, like Rodin and Camille Claudel, or there's so many examples where there's not a lot of nuance to the story, at least as I understand these stories. So Percy, I think, is sort of complicit in that she says at a young age, she says she doesn't want credit when Joe asks. And it takes her a long time to really stand up for it and ask for it. And when she does, she's not all that clear. And it's, and then he does, once she is clear, he does give it to her in his way. And so, yeah, I just wanted to show that in a way that wasn't purely that where the misogyny was also internalized. Because I think so many feminist novels have these just awesome, badass bitches that we all wish we could be, who just stride into the room and ask for what they need, and the world shuns them because of it, but they keep fighting. And I love those stories. Like, don't get me wrong. But that's not what being a woman has been like for me. So in that case, yeah, I was trying to show it in a nuanced way where maybe Percy wasn't always asking for what she deserved, in addition to Joe being a stupid dude and not giving her what she deserved.
Hmm. Yeah, that was definitely a an interesting dynamic. My favorite quote from the book is from chapter 26. And it says, honestly, how many different ways is it even possible for the same two people to break each other's hearts? And I love that quote so much, even in the context of a romantic relationship or platonic or whatever you want to call it. But even within like families, parents and a child, and or siblings, or just a long-term marriage, like even within the same marriage, you go through phases of your life where, you break each other's hearts for, in different degrees. But I just thought that was such a insightful quote, and it just made me think about relationships as a whole.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's really interesting. I hadn't thought of that, how it happens with in other types of relationships too. Yeah, I always knew that it would be that kind of book, like a normal people kind of book where it's just you're following this one relationship over time that just finds all these ways to get it wrong.
Yeah.
I just love those kinds of books. So, yeah. It's what made the book feel like a memory.
Mm.
Can I just say I was actually rooting for Raj though. I so I'm like you. So I'm 51. My whole 20s, I've told these girls before, and I have an 11-year-old, so that's even crazier. I lived a whole life before I even met my husband at 37 or 36, and I married at 37. And I feel bad a lot of the time because my husband can't, he's 6 years younger than me, for one thing. He was a music disc jockey for a station up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I'm in the Milwaukee area. And I had like this rock and roll job of marketing and touring, helping the bands that were touring, announcing them on stage. I worked
Mm.
for a radio station on the side, always held a corporate job, but just had these side gigs. And I dated the musicians, I did all the things. But I also had this mature side part of me that eventually, yes, I settled down. And so it is fun for me to read these books, but because now I've had these two completely different lives, um, Raj really stuck out to
Yeah.
me. And
Yeah.
I couldn't help but root for him. And I honestly was understanding, but also heartbroken when that final email came through.
Yeah, I know. I'm
Sorry,
so
I'm breaking up.
sorry about that email.
Yeah.
It was hard for me too, but I think Raj was too good for Percy, at
Oh,
least in
yeah.
that
Oh,
stage of her
100%.
life. You
I
know,
mean,
she,
she even talks about the guilt she felt by not giving in to him. So yeah,
yeah,
thank you for writing him because I thought, wow, he's kind of like the knight, but he was also flawed in a way that he allowed it to happen,
yeah,
even though he knew from the very beginning that her heart was with Joe.
yeah, I think so. I think so. But he was, yeah, I think he's probably like the hero. Well, Zoe's probably the hero of the book. But yeah, Raj is great. It was hard for me too. I mean, I think there's like a version of this book that could have gone that way. And she could have, maybe just become a writer and settled down with Raj. I just felt like it wasn't really true to who she was, to who Percy was, and that her journey wasn't over yet at that point. So, yeah.
Speaking of that email, that was one of my favorite moments because it was like the first time someone, besides Zoe, it was the first time someone really gave Percy that reality check. And Raj was like, I thought he was totally in the right. I loved how direct he was, how curt he was. Like, I I just loved, I don't remember what he said, but like, was it he signed off like fuck you or something? Right, like I just everything he wrote, I was like, you're right. Like, and I remember reading that, stopping my husband from like he plays like he was doing a fishing game, and I was reading this like in the same room. I was like, sweetie, you gotta pause it. Listen to what just happened. So I like explained to him the situation, and then I read him her email, and then I read Raj's email, and we're both just like clapping for Raj. Like it was just so I just loved it. Like I don't think Percy's a bad character. I think you when you're young, these things happen. Like everyone has flaws, but I just really loved that for him. But I mean, I also had to remember like he tells her like he's older than her, he's a little more mature. And I think that was just like such a funny way for him to have handled that situation. So I just loved it.
Thank you. Thank you. I loved that too. I was like just like getting out all of my frustrations with Percy through Raj and just giving him, I think, the moment he deserved. I worked really hard on that letter. I remember editing it a bunch. Because at first he came off a little like unhinged because I was, I think, just like having so much fun giving Percy her due. And then I ended up shaping it to make it really controlled and make him just like I didn't want him to come off as crazy. He was just like, fuck off. I wish you well. Yeah. Be out of my life.
Yes. Okay, and a question in the chat. Was it hard to write the scene with Harrison?
No, I don't even want to talk about it. Yeah, it was. That was like the one scene that I didn't rewrite that much. Like I'm a perfectionist and a heavy reviser. So I like go back constantly. I'm not like a dirty draft person. I like write a chapter and then I rewrite it and then I rewrite it and then I do the next chapter and then I go back to the last. I just like inch my way forward. And I always enjoy just going back to almost any part of my book and reading it again. Um, but not that one. I like got it to a place where it was doing what I needed it to do. It seemed to work, and then I like almost never reread it. Even now, yeah, it was yes. This is the answer to the question. It was very hard to write that scene, and there wasn't a lot in this book that was like that because this book for me was such a labor of love. I was truly doing whatever the heck I wanted. I was having fun. I was only writing about songs I loved. I was writing about my old nostalgic memories. But that part I knew that needed to happen. Something like that needed to happen because by that point, I knew I was writing this sort of millennial or young Xer. I was writing about that time as much as I was writing a Bildungsroman. And that was just something that just something like that happened to almost everybody I knew in college and grad school. So I wanted that to happen and I needed something that was going to mess up the next kind of Joe interaction too. So yeah, it was hard to write, but I'm glad I did.
Mhm. See. Oh yeah, Shanna. Um, Thank goodness for Zoe. Will you talk a little bit more about Zoe's character and like how her character arc evolved?
Yeah. Yeah, she started kind of as a way for me to plug Percy and Joe into the real world because they're so just, myopically obsessed with music, and I knew I needed somebody more grounded. Um, and there was always that girl I remember from college who was just like always talking about like take back the night rallies and the patriarchy, and we were always like what? Like she was just way ahead of her time, that poor girl. And so I knew that stuff would be fair to put in there. And she could also be this kind of voice of the present, like there were people talking about the male gaze back then. And uh but there weren't very many of them. So that's how she started. And then, she ended up, even in those early chapters, she was driving things to some degree. And I was falling more and more in love with her. Um, so then later, I knew I had to bring back a female friend because that is just, I don't know about y'all, but that is a much bigger part of me finding myself than my romantic relationships in my 20s. So I knew I needed that. And at that point, when I brought her back, I infused some qualities from my best friend Rachel, who is a very bossy friend. I don't know if anybody has these friends who are like super supportive but very bossy. And this quality in my friend has just saved me so many times because sometimes you just need that. You need somebody who's not gonna like be wishy-washy with their friendship, who's gonna tell you what you need to hear. So yeah, that was that. Once I put that part into Zoe, then she really did start driving a lot of the plot, in this sort of quiet way, that I think makes her very important, and she's very lovable. I think people keep asking me who's going to play her in the movie because I think people are so attached to her. But I'm like, I don't know. Sorry, I don't know.
I saw on your website that there was like a question, like a frequently asked question, and it was like, "Can I like
God.
have my song in your movie or audition?" And you're like, "I don't know who you need to talk to about that, but it's not me."
It's really not me. It's really like at my signings, people come up to me after my signings. Like this one handsome Indian man came up to me after my signing with all these thoughtful reactions about Raj. And I was like, oh wow, this is so interesting. And then he was like, also, I'm an actor. Like, dude, wrong tree to
I
be
don't,
barking
yeah,
up.
I can't help you. Yeah, that's so funny. So as you were writing this book, did you know, you said you were kind of inching your way through it. Did you know the direction that it was going to go, or was it surprising to you? Like, did you have it outlined in your mind, or like, would you describe yourself as a pantser or a
I'm a
plotter?
pantser. I'm a pantser big time. Like the
Okay.
most extreme. If there's a spectrum of plotter to pantser, I'm like the far end of the pantser spectrum.
Okay.
I'm flying blind all the time. I think less so with my second book. I have a little bit more idea with this one, but yeah, I really was. I think right around the heartbeats chapter was where I knew I could see how I was going to land the plane by that point. And which was the most exhilarating moment because it's very scary to be a pantser. I don't actually recommend it. Um, And I was having a great time, but there was always an anxiety of like, am I really writing a book or am I just writing this like series of scenes? Is this going to have the right shape to it? Um, but then it just, yeah, it just worked. I think having read so many books, you know these structures kind of in your bones after a while. And so I didn't feel every time I've tried to keep an outline, I did try a couple times with deep cuts, and I would just quickly go so far away from it. Because I get to know my characters as I write. And then of course plot has to come from character. And so it just doesn't work for me to try to create that plot without really knowing these people intimately.
That makes sense. That's an interesting way to describe it.
I was also going to talk about like this cover. Like this may be one of like my favorite covers ever. And how did this happen? How did you, was there lots of options? Did you, how did, it's just really
Thank you.
perfect.
Yeah, I don't know, it's a little polarizing. Some people don't like it or don't like those songs on the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. And I'm glad to hear that you do. Yeah, there were definitely, it was a process. It was many, many weeks of them showing me things. And the ones that I liked tended to be kind of a more indie small book feel, which was not gonna fly because this needed to be a big book feel. But then it had that very traditional vibe of like block letters on some sort of visual background. And it just, I don't know, it was tricky. It was really tricky. Anything with like an iPod would look like YA. Anything with a CD lacked emotion. There were just all these problems we kept running into. So yeah, it took a long time, but I love it. And now there's that picture everywhere with Saoirse's face and Austin's face and the book cover in the middle. And every time I see it, I'm like, yeah, it's just as gorgeous as they are.
Oh. And the title too, with the double meaning. Will you talk a little bit about the title?
The title took me an embarrassingly long time to come up with. It feels so obvious to me now that it's like I almost hate this question because I should just like make up an answer. Uh, yeah, I just had this idea that it would be a song title. Because albums are often titled by one of the songs. So I wanted it to be like Sarah Smile or The King of Carrot Flowers or one of the chapters in the book. But none of them were right. So then it was like, well, it'll be, more obscure. It won't be one of the chapter titles, but it'll be like Bizarre Love Triangle, I thought for a long time, which is a New Order song. I was thinking like bizarre, it's kind of like the love triangle of Joe and Percy, and you think it's going to be Zoe, but then it turns out really to be Joe and Percy, and the music is kind of the love triangle. Anyway, I was going with bizarre love triangle for a long time. And then I started thinking about album titles, and then I found that the knife Heartbeats, the song Heartbeats appears on an album called Deep Cuts. And then I was like, oh my God, that is so obviously the title for this book. I mean, the book was done. It was at that
Okay.
point. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it is so perfect because just yeah, the way the double meaning and the way that, Percy and Joe's relationship, like just over and over and over again, these like small cuts and deep cuts and yeah, it's perfect.
I'll
yeah.
admit that I didn't know what like a deep cut was music wise. And it was I before I got the book, my husband said something about, oh, that song, that's like a real deep cut. And I go, wait, I'm reading a book. Cuts. And he's like, well, no, I mean not like a book, like, the song that I'm talking about. And then he had to explain to me what that refers to when you're talking about a song because I didn't know.
Yeah, some of the publishers didn't know either. I remember when I was having all those conversations during the bidding war, some of them were like, the title? I think is going to be a little obscure for people. And then there's also the problem that you can't like search for it on Instagram because it's
Oh my
like
God.
Oh.
thing pictures.
Mhm.
Like, did not think about that.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, but it's fine.
It has to be that. Yeah.
Working. It's working well enough.
It's a
So
great title, especially now that I know the reference to music and songs.
yeah.
I was thinking more like deep cut relationships and that type of thing, but it's
Yeah.
great.
How did the book evolve from your initial drafts as you're slowly like inching your way through? Were there any like major plot points that you changed after, through the editing process or like walked back or what did that drafting process look like?
Yeah. Mostly it was just constant revision. I found a printout of the first chapter recently that is like, wow, like that first chapter got so much better just through revision. There was one big plot point that changed. I wrote it, the first draft, she basically becomes like a writer.
Mm,
Like she just really, she does none of that happens. There's no Luke Skinner.
mm,
She doesn't produce a song, and it still kind of ends up the same. But the way that she and Percy, or the way that she and Joe get together and kind of get over all of their baggage is because she's no longer interested in being in the music world. She has her writing. Um, and my agent was like, I don't believe this. Like, I don't, Percy wants to be in the music world. And so that was a very right after I got my agent. So I got her in Labor Day. She offered to represent me, and she had that edit right away. And she didn't know what it was instead, but she was just like, I don't think she should be a writer. I think it should go towards music. And so yeah, I did have that one big edit, and I just instantly sort of knew she was right. I think it was fear. It was like allowing Percy to branch off more from myself
mm,
um, to be like who she really was, which is a person with musical talent more than I have. And so, and just kind of had the ballsiness, giving her the ballsiness to do what she really wanted instead of shrinking back. And so once I had that agent giving me the guts to do it, that allowed me to just write the story the way I really always wanted to. So yeah, I took like a month off of work and just focused my everything on nailing that revision. So then I added that least worst song of the century chapter, and took out this other chapter. And that was pretty much it. But it did. And then I sort of went back and infused the Luke Skinner character earlier on. So that kind of was all retroactive.
mm. That's interesting. What do you envision is next for Percy and Joe? And maybe we'll add Raj into the mix too. Like this was
Oh,
all
I would love to hear how other people answer this question. Can I hear from other people first? Or is
Okay,
that
yeah,
not
no, you
fair?
can hear.
Like, does anyone else, what do you guys think?
Yeah. Oh, Anna, I was gonna say Anna had a good thought, but I think she had screaming kids at one point, so
Oh, fair, fair. And
she's
I'm
off.
happy to answer it too. I just,
She said when we were talking about this in our book club, she was saying that she just felt like she liked the ambiguity piece of it. Like she wanted to sit with that because she felt like it was true to their characters. And so she felt that she didn't have a strong desire to like know either way because it was kind of true to them. I was like, oh, that's a good, I mean, it's an interesting perspective. And I appreciated the way it ended the way it ended the way it did. But also part of me is like, but now what?
Yeah,
yeah,
I wanted to see Percy evolve a little more and kind of as the years were going on, I did think she was stuck for a bit. So I wanted to see that maturity kick in. And then so when the ending happened, I'm like, what? Like, then what? Like, how did they? I want them to have a rock band together. Like, I was thinking Daisy Jones, and so how did that, like, I would love to see a part two on what happened then. Are there rock
yeah.
star babies? But then she also mentioned Percy was super hung up on Raj getting married. Like she looked at marriage as a not so good thing, even though she was okay and not feeling hurt about Zoe moving on with
Yeah, I
Melissa.
think I mean, at the point when she says that about Raj, she's what, 26 or
Yeah.
27. Yeah, it's just like, who gets
Who
married?
gets
It's just
married?
weird to her at that age. I think I'm sure she'd feel very differently. She might feel very differently a few years later. But yeah, I think that they have a tough road ahead of them. That's what I think. I think that there will always be
Kelly.
something kind of yeah, I think it's going to be hard, but I'm really glad that they're giving it a try. That's how I feel. I feel like they never really tried. He says that near the end, like, have we ever really tried this? Like it's never happened for them, honestly. So I think that's what was the important thing was that they were committing to just at least on a month-to-month lease, giving this a try. And I hope that they make it. I hope that they make it.
I love what Mandy said in the chat. She said, I kind of love the idea of them floundering around, self-absorbed, lost in music, and embracing that part of each other. We don't all figure it out, and I appreciate their dynamics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I hope they get less self-absorbed, but I do really love the idea of them like in this little house together. Um,
With the
and
cats.
yeah, maybe they have a cat. Maybe they just like being able to focus on music. I loved that. I feel like the pandemic gave a lot of people that chance, and then there was the only other time in my lifetime when I felt that kind of clean slate feeling was in '08 when everything kind of was shutting down, and there were a lot of people making moves like that. So. I wanted them to just be able to go somewhere where they could really focus on music together and really finally get to know each other in that way.
I feel like they're the couple that they're talking about something, obviously it's going to be music or they're trying to get that lyric right. Someone says something, the other says something totally opposite. I mean, and we've seen it in the book where like they get mad, they storm off, but like at the end of the day, Joe comes and like gives her a hug or something, or like he doesn't concede in the music, but he concedes in like another way where she feels cared for, and then she's like, "Oh, okay, whatever," and then they
Yeah.
move on, right? And
Yeah.
it's like I have that in my marriage where my husband and I will disagree on like the dumbest little detail, like something about our dog, something really like it does not matter. And the apology is always like, hey, you look thirsty, I got you this drink, or, like
Mm.
you look cold, here's a blanket, like something little, but it's like ultimately like there's the care. But I feel like, at least in my mind, these two characters are so, they can't get away from each other. Like they're going to revolve around each other. And as they're revolving, like there's always going to be music. And as long as they have like that music, I feel like they can't, like, there is no other person for them, right? Like,
Yeah.
no matter what, I feel like they're going to make it work. And part of me wanted to have a little more of that ending, but I'm also happy that I have this like picture in my head of like what their road looks going forward, right? I don't need to be there, but if I can like envision like, oh, this is really sweet for them, then I feel like that makes me happy too.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I love that. I love that answer.
Holly, what do you hope readers take away from the story?
Um, I hope that they think about their own talents, especially if there might not be the kind of obvious talents that our culture teaches us to valorize and to think of as the talent. I think it's this very American tendency to worship the talent of this one individual who gets to stand up on the stage doing something really sexy. But the reality is there's lots of other talents that go into that. There's lots of really unique talents out there in the world that I don't think people appreciate. And I hope that I hope that Percy makes them think about how they may have um, maybe undervaluing some of their own talents. I also hope that they just remember maybe a simpler time in their life, or a time, not a simpler time, that's the wrong word, a time in their life when they felt really present,
Mm.
and um and that they think of ways to bring that back into their lives today.
Yeah, I love that. Uh, okay, anyone else have any more questions or any questions for Holly before we take our picture?
Are you able, Holly, to mention anything about what you're working on next before we?
Yeah, sure. So it's another um first person narration with a really opinionated, outspoken female protagonist. So that might be my thing. But there's no music really. It's all set in the present during a heat wave and ensuing wildfire. So a little bit maybe darker, a little bit more political and existential, but also somehow funnier and still very much a love story.
It sounds like a great combo.
Exciting. Yeah. Sounds great.
Do you have a timeline on that or
I'm
not?
like halfway through. So I don't know. I don't really know, but I like to write fast. Like once I'm in it, I don't, my problem becomes doing all of the other things, sewing on the Girl Scout badges, and I just want to spend all my free time writing, and that makes it go pretty quickly. Um, so I don't know. I hope it's pretty soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rebecca is wondering what you are reading now.
I'm reading Fundamentally by Nasaiba Yunus. I think
Hmm.
that's how you say her name.
Okay.
Um it came out the same day as mine. It's about a woman who goes to join for the UN rehabilitating ISIS brides. But she's a mess and it's very funny. It like doesn't sound funny, but it's really funny and sexy and brash. It's good. I'm only like a third of the way through, but I'm enjoying it.
Okay. What are some great books you've read lately or like books that you're looking forward to?
Um, let's see. I loved The Safekeep
Mm.
by Yael Vanderwooden. Oh my God, that book destroyed me, and I still think about it constantly. The Strange Case of Jane O.
Yes.
Karen Thompson Walker, I thought was really interesting. I mean, she's a friend, full disclosure, but I really did genuinely love that book. Um, what am I looking forward to? I don't know. I'm blanking on that one. Oh, do you know about The Names by Florence Knapp?
I read it.
You
Hmm.
read
I
it?
read,
Are so
yeah. Mhm. Yep, that's really good.
Yeah, so good. It's going to be huge. It doesn't need my bringing attention to it. But yeah, we have the same agents. So I read it early too.
Oh,
And
fun.
yeah.
Okay, and what are you listening to? We should ask you that too.
Oh God, I'm not good on that. I know people always ask me this, and I'm like, I'm not that girl anymore. It's like Olivia Rodrigo all the time in this house. I have two young
Yep.
girls. I like listen really hard to the Olivia Rodrigo.
Okay,
Like,
great.
yeah, I the other day my daughter was like, you know that song Get 'Em Back? I don't know. You have boys and they're younger, so you probably don't. But anyway, there's this song that's like I want to get him back. I want to make him really jealous. I want to make him feel sad. I want to get him back because I really miss him. And my daughter was like, "Mom, it's interesting." She says like when she says get him back, I think she means that she wants to like get him back as her boyfriend, but she also wants to like get back at him. And I was just like, I'm so proud. This is my proudest moment.
The double meaning. Oh,
Yeah.
she
So
was
great.
interpreting the lyrics. I love it.
Ah, so great.
I love it. Well, let's grab a picture if you've got your book. If not,
Oh, yes.
Plenty of them.